You see, dear sheeple, those bringing about the New World Order warned us. They made it perfectly clear. If you cannot and will not rule yourself, you must be ruled. That is what they believe. If you cannot rule yourself, they will rule you for you because you are mentally incapable. And yes, folks, Benjamin Franklin pretended to be a Christian, but was, in fact, a Freemason. He was one of them as well. Just like Thomas Jefferson, the man who wrote his own Bible. Both were highly degreed members of the Masonic Lodge. You see, folks, you have been deceived massively. You continue to push agendas you don't understand and likely would not support had you understood them. Quote, "They that give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither safety nor liberty. Those who would sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. He who would trade liberty for some temporary security deserves neither liberty nor security." End quote. That was Benjamin Franklin, dear sheeple. You see, they warned you. They told you from the start.
I was taught that education is the only way to make it. Then how'd I get so much money inside my savings? My teachers never saw the heights that I was fucking aiming. Did the man who invented college go to college? Okay then. Am I the only one that noticed humans on the same shit? Y'all thought you're selling on the same ship. And if that's the case, then that's the reason that you ain't shit. Let me enlighten you, my niggas, just let your brain drift. First of all, the best type of marketing is marketing that doesn't feel like marketing. It makes the people feel like they're a part of it. And when it's done right, corporations think it's marvelous. They feed us these ideas and then we place them in our hearts to sit. It's why players are good at getting chicks. It's why Nike is good at selling kicks. It's why Disney is loved by all the kids. Why McDonald's owners is super rich. We too blinded to ever see him pitch. See, when this happens, we got health, wealth, lives, and just hand them off. Thinking that we did this for organic thoughts. I know you seen parents trick kids with candy toys and Santa Claus. The same method is used to trap adults. But instead of candy, it's with money, religion, drugs, and alcohol. Mention that shit and this go arouse us all. I done seen niggas get into fights over cigarettes like a pack of dogs. They get you hooked and then they laugh at y'all. I really hate to break it to you, but your life's being played with. You have not witnessed the world cause you're stuck in the matrix. Everything we have been taught was all a lie. Open your eyes, open your mind. Man, can't you see we're robots who know not what we do when we got no shot in the real world until we climb out of this ice cold box? Your whole life has been part of a whole plot to keep you at the bottom while they on top. Stay quiet, then they won't stop. They always trying to show us what we don't got. They do it to all of us till we finally break and go cop or go watch, knowing we need the cash for rent. My ass is sick just thinking about how rich and powerful all these bastards get. They package ideas like it's oxygen. They make us feel like if we ain't got it, we fucked and we cannot fit in. This fucking system is not your friend. And understand they controlling your thoughts cause they got a lot to win. Niggas get turned away when I mention this. Ignorance is bliss, but I don't give a fuck. I don't censor shit. The matrix is real when you done entered it. It's way too intricate for you to ever realize it, you fucking simpleton. I really hate to break it to you, but your life's being played with. You have not witnessed the world cause you're stuck in the matrix. Everything we have been taught was all a lie. Open your eyes, open your mind. Yeah, fuck Hollywood, fuck all these reality shows, making us feel lame unless we blowing stacks of new clothes, making us feel like we ain't cool unless we have a few hoes, making us feel like we ugly unless we have a new nose. I see naturally beautiful women get Botox, fake tits, fake lips, they so brainwashed and it doesn't make sense. Focus on your life and the path you pursuing, cause y'all too busy worried about what Kim Kardashian is doing. Check it, most of the shit that you shit for watching on television is fake as fuck and it's not real. I rebel against it, it's the devil's business, they just reel y'all in. If they say it, we do it, y'all. I'm trying to tell y'all, man, the system created the stereotype for the black image. That's why my people are scared to be different. Why don't you get it? I'm done practicing these ridiculous rituals. It's time I become a real individual. Just do me. I really hate to break it to you, but your life's being played with. You have not witnessed the world cause you're stuck in the matrix. Everything we have been taught was all a lie. Open your eyes, open your mind, and fly.
The ancient mystery religions, which are now known as the mystery schools, the Order of the Quest, Freemasonry, the Ancient Order of the Rose and Cross, the Knights Templar, the Sovereign and Military Order of the Knights of Malta, the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, the Thule Society, the Order of the Trapezoid, the Skull and Bones, the Scroll and Key, the Russell Trust, the Jason Society, the Illuminati, etc. The most important thing to realize is that they have all been collectively known throughout the ages as the mystery schools. The Illuminati, which means illumined ones, international socialism, communism, they are all one and the same, as you will come to know. You will understand perfectly how they've been able to infiltrate all levels of our society. Everyone always asks me, what is the answer to this madness? What is the answer to beating the New World Order? Well, the answer is becoming sovereign. Becoming sovereign. Folks, most of you don't understand. When your parents signed your birth certificate, you became a 14th Amendment citizen to the United States of America, the District of Columbia, and all of its territories. You are not a citizen of the Republic of the United States of America. That's why you are subject to pay your taxes, because you have been deemed a volunteer, essentially. So what do you do to beat it? Well, you have to become sovereign. We're going to get a little deeper into that tonight. And I hope to explain to you guys what exactly that means. You know, people would say, you got to become sovereign, you got to get your rights back, but you see, most people aren't aware that they've actually lost their rights. They have no idea, really. So we're going to get a little deeper into this. We'll start with state sovereignty. Quote, "The sovereignty of the states resides in the people thereof." End quote. California, Title 1, Article 1, Section 100. Quote, State governments are but trustees acting under a derived authority of the people. End quote. Quote, "While sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts." Unquote. Yick Wo versus Hopkins and Wu Lee versus Hopkins. The Articles of Confederation, which were not repealed by the Constitution, state, in Article 2, quote, "Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled." End quote. Did you understand that, folks? I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to hope that you understand that. Quote, "Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States." End quote. Jurisdiction means a particular limited geographical area over which a particular governmental body can legislate or force legislative compliance. For example, Nevada is a separate sovereign state where gambling is legal. Utah is a separate sovereign state where gambling is illegal. However, the Utah police cannot come into Nevada and arrest all of the gamblers. Nevada is, quote, "outside of Utah's jurisdiction," end quote. That is why, if a citizen commits a crime under the laws of one state and flees to another, he or she must be extradited or brought back to the state where the crime was committed. Quote, each state declared itself sovereign and independent, according to the limits of its territory. The soil and the sovereignty within their acknowledged limits were as much theirs at the Declaration of Independence as at this very hour. End quote. Harcourt vs. Gillard. The original several states were each separate, independent, and proud contiguous nations who vehemently valued their freedom. They fought and died in a revolutionary war to sever their ties as subjects of the King of England and establish their independence as sovereigns. The states jealously guarded their own sovereign rights, powers, jurisdiction, and land. They refused to cede their newly won sovereignty to a federal government and be subject to another jurisdiction. The citizens of the states, however, thought that it would be advantageous to the general welfare of the several states to delegate certain limited responsibilities, such as uniform monetary creation, which was to be coined gold and silver, as stated in the Constitution, defense and postal services to a federal government, other than the very limited and reclaimable cessions of powers delegated to the federal government as specified and limited in the Constitution. Each of the states maintained the same independent sovereignty that they had under the Articles of Confederation. Quote, prior to the adoption of the federal Constitution, states possessed unlimited and unrestricted sovereignty and retained the same afterward. Upon entering the Union, they retained all their original power and sovereignty, except such as was surrendered to the federal government or they were expressly prohibited from exercising by the United States Constitution. End quote. Blair versus Ridley. See, most of you people, sorry, I had to get some high-quality fluoride and parched. It's been a long day. I'm doing some work out here trekking these mountains. I don't know if many of you know what that's like to climb mountains all day, but it's rather exhausting. Essentially, you must understand that the powers that weren't given to the federal government within the Constitution remained to the people and the states. The following is a list of the only areas where the people have ceded powers to Congress. Remember that absolute sovereignty is still with the people. There can only be one sovereign. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution states, quote, the Congress shall have the power, 1, to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, with the following restrictions. A, all direct taxes must be apportioned or divided equally according to the population. That's your income tax, people. Or B, all indirect taxes must be uniform. 2, to borrow money on the credit of the United States. 3, to regulate commerce with foreign nations, the several states, and the Indian tribes. 4, to establish uniform rules regarding the, quote, naturalization, unquote, of aliens. 5, to establish uniform rules of bankruptcies throughout the United States. 6, to coin money. That meant gold and silver. A, to regulate the value of such money and the value of foreign coins. B, to fix a standard of weights and measures for such money. 7, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiters of the United States coins and securities. That would be the Federal Reserve. Your Federal Reserve notes, which they call a dollar, are not a dollar at all. A dollar is 1/20th of an ounce of a gold. That's why a $20 gold piece is 1 ounce of gold. Well, or it used to be. 8, to establish the post office and post roads. 9, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings, i.e., copyrights and discoveries, patents. 8. To constitute tribunals or courts inferior to the Supreme Court. 9. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas. Do you see how they made this legal, folks? Let me read that again for you, because I know that if there is any of you watching this that have even made it this far, which is highly unlikely. However, if they are, it's very likely that you're awake and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you understand why number 9 is in there. Yes, some would say it's to protect our ports and our borders. And we do have a constitutional navy. But listen to that again. Number 9. To declare and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas. Remember that when you're thinking Admiralty Maritime Law. 10. To define and punish offenses against the law of nations. 11. To declare war, to grant letters of marque and reprisal. 12. To make rules for capturing the enemy on land and water. 13. To raise and support armies. A. No such appropriation of money shall be for longer than 2 years. Not sure if you understand that one either, folks, but like I said, if you're awake and you've been researching these topics for quite some time, I'm sure you've stumbled across this information before. I'll read it again, though. Number 13. To raise and support armies. No such appropriation of money shall be for longer than 2 years. 15. Looks like 14 got taken out of here. Well, that's not good. 15. To provide and maintain a navy. 16. To make rules for the government and regulation of land and naval forces. 17. To provide for the calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union and to suppress insurrections and repel invasions of the enemy. Listen to that again. Number 17. To provide for the calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union and to suppress insurrections and repel invasions of the enemy. 18. To organize, arm, and discipline the militia. The appointment of officers and training of the military, as prescribed by Congress, was reserved by the states. 19. To make necessary laws for executing powers vested in the Constitution. Other than these specifically delegated powers, the Congress has absolutely no power over the citizens of the 50 states. It may not assume powers not specifically granted to it by the people. Note that these powers were delegated only to Congress and not to the executive branch of the United States. Quote, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people, end quote. That's right from the 10th Amendment. The purpose of the revolution was to break the strangling bonds of governmental restraint, domination, and the unjust taxation of the people's substance without their consent. America was founded on the principle that there was a law higher than any earthly law and an authority higher than any earthly authority. The Declaration of Independence, our first organic law, established and defined the fundamental principles underlying the source of law for America's republican system of government. America was established as a government unlike any previously established on earth, not demanded by the powers of a monarch for his own enrichment, but entitled by the powers of the earth and the Creator for the purpose of protecting the happiness, freedom, and property of the people. Do you understand that, folks? That's stating and telling you that your rights do not come from any kind of government. They don't come from the Constitution. They come directly from God in America. America was established not by the authority of the codified statutes of men, but by the authority of natural entitlement, by the superior intelligence of the laws of nature and of nature's God. In the words of the opening lines of the Declaration of Independence, quote, "When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station as sovereigns to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them," end quote. John Quincy Adams eloquently defined America's system of laws as, quote, "Our political way of life is by the laws of nature, of nature's God, the moral ruler of the universe, and a rule of right and wrong, of just and unjust, binding upon man, preceding all institutions of human society and government," end quote. The following excerpt from the first prayer in Congress summarizes our founding fathers' intent to create a government not under man, but under God. Quote, "O Lord, our Heavenly Father, look down in mercy on these American states who have fled to Thee, desiring to be, henceforth, dependent only on Thee." End quote. Man was to be the trustee for God's laws. And understand, when I say that, I'm not saying that we were meant to be a theocracy, because that is not the case whatsoever. We were never meant to be a theocracy. Because if that were the case, anyone who doesn't believe the state religion would then be a heretic. And that is not at all what our founders envisioned. In fact, most of them came here to flee religious persecution. The underlying principles at the foundation of the higher law, which have been extended to the common law, are right, wrong, morality, justice, truth, equality, empathy, and logic. To be law, it had to be logical. The fundamental principle of this law is summed up in one, quote, royal law, end quote, which is the basis for almost every religion and philosophy. It is based upon the principle of universal love. And I'm not talking universal love, one world order bullshit. It's not what I'm talking about. Quote, "If ye fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, ye do well," unquote. Quote, "Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them. This is the law," end quote. Quote, "Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all of the law," end quote. The common law. The law of the 50 states. The law of common sense, reason, justice, and truth. Quote, "The United States adopted the common laws of England with the Constitution," end quote. Caldwell v. Hill. Quote, "The law of the land means the common law," end quote. Taylor v. Porter. Quote, "The common law of England, so far as it is not repugnant or inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, or the Constitution or the laws of this state, is the rule of decision in all the courts of this state," end quote. Section 22.2, California Government Code. The common law originated as the unwritten law of England. It is rooted in the Magna Carta signed by King John in 1215. It limited the powers of the king and guaranteed liberties of the people. It is derived from principles rather than rules. It does not consist of absolute inflexible statutes, but rather of broad and comprehensive principles based on morality, justice, reason, conscience, truth, and common sense. This jurisprudence system is based on judicial precedent, or court decisions, rather than the mass volumes of codes and absolutist legislative statutes which binds the citizens subject to exclusive U.S. jurisdiction to every word and comma. The common law has only two solid principles upon which all law is based. And folks, what essentially you're hearing right now is that, or what you're about to hear, are really the only laws. 1. Do not encroach upon the rights or property of others. And 2. Keep all contracts and agreements that you enter into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. Under the common law, if there's no victim, there's no crime. There must be an injured party. Under the common law, an American citizen is free to conduct his affairs according to his own conscience as long as he keeps his voluntary intentional agreements and does not encroach upon the rights of others. Although there are written court precedents memorializing common law principles, the common law is considered an unwritten law. The common law is the will of the people. The civil law is the will of the government. Civil laws are established for the purpose of regulating the people, imposing fees, and establishing penalties for noncompliance. Morality and justice are not mandatory in civil law. At the Nuremberg trials, Nazi defendants claimed innocence on the grounds that they were under orders and obeying Germany's laws. I'm just following orders. The prosecution argued that, quote, there is a higher law than any government can impose upon us, end quote. The judges agreed, stating, quote, the fact that the defendant acted pursuant to an order of this government or of a superior shall not free him from responsibility, end quote. In that significant decision, the court acknowledged that a higher law existed, above that of the government. The Nazi defendants had broken the laws, which the Declaration of Independence defines as, quote, laws of nature and nature's God, end quote. That is, the laws of morality and reason, and therefore the Nazi defendants were executed. One of the promises contained in the Declaration of Independence was that America's new government would, quote, provide new guards for the future security of America's citizens, end quote. Those guards were codified into the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Because of these future guards against governmental abuse, it is not necessary for us to start another revolutionary war if we feel our rights are being violated or abused. Our rights have already been memorialized into law. All we need is an intellectual revolution for the purpose of teaching all Americans what their rights are and how to claim them under the law. Our job in reclaiming America is to force the government to obey the law. You see, we're not trying to do anything over the top or radical here. We're simply looking to get the government to obey the law. And I know that sounds ridiculous to most people, but man, you guys got to wake up. The government is fully committing treason, and it's not long before we all know what's going to happens, which is very unfortunate. And we don't need that. We don't need anything bad going on here. Quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Unquote. That is from the unanimous declaration of the 13 united with a little u, lowercase, 13 United States of America, uppercase states. These words, written by Thomas Jefferson, are probably the most dynamic and meaningful words ever written in the history of America. Words that noble men gave their lives for. Note the lowercase u in united. The word united was merely an adjective modifying states. They were the 13 United States of America. Note that our founding fathers did not title our country the United States or the United States of America. The name of our country was and is America. America. Are you an American? Or are you not? The colonists were merely establishing themselves as states, as opposed to colonies that were united in America. Sorry, folks, we're having a couple technical difficulties here in the studio. All right. We're good to go. Everything's moving. I'll go back and restate that all because I was bumbling through it, trying to go slow to get my low-budget studio working to make this a somewhat realistic podcast. However, it's not a podcast at all. This is a ministry of truth. Quote, the word united was merely an adjective modifying states. They were the 13 United States of America. Note that our founding fathers did not title our country the United States or the United States of America. The name of our country was and is America. The colonists were merely establishing themselves as states, as opposed to colonies that were united in America. These states are also referred to in law as, quote, the several states, the freely associated and compact states, the republic states, and the union states. In law, each state was and is a separate nation, and each state was and is foreign to the other. In future chapters, we will learn about a different corporate United States in which the word united is a title. We hold these truths to be self-evident, end quote. The truths within this grand document are so obvious that they are immediately apparent to our innate sense of logic and justice. We're defining the Declaration of Independence here, people. The status of the people are, quote, that all men are created equal, end quote. This is the foundation of our American legal philosophy of equality for all under the law. The origin of rights are, quote, that they are endowed by their Creator, end quote. Our rights were endowed by our Creator. They are inborn from God. The nature of rights are, quote, with certain unalienable rights, end quote. Unalienable is incapable of being alienated, surrendered, or transferred. Rights are something to which one has a just or lawful claim. What one fairly has coming an individual's absolute prerogative and correctness, justice, and to which is honorable, end quote. The types of rights are, quote, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, end quote. These terms are expansive in meaning, as interpreted by the Supreme Court. The purpose of government is, quote, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, end quote. The purpose of government, therefore, is to secure and protect the rights of the people. The source of the government's power is, quote, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, end quote. The government obtains its power only through the people. Our Supreme Court gave the following extremely eloquent summary of unalienable rights. Quote, as in our interaction with our fellow men, certain principles of morality are assumed to exist, without which society would be impossible. So certain inherent rights lie at the foundation of all action, and upon a recognition of them alone can free institutions be maintained. These inherent rights have never been more happily expressed than in the Declaration of Independence, the Evangel of Liberty to the people. Quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, words so plain that their truth is recognized upon their mere statement, that all men are endowed, end quote, not by the edicts of emperors or decrees of a parliament or acts of Congress, but by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that is, rights which cannot be bartered away or given away or taken away, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these, not grant them, but secure them, governments are instituted among men, delivering their just powers from the consent of the governed. End quote. Butchers Union versus Crescent City. It's pretty incredible, isn't it, people? It's not some pipe dream that many claim. It is the law of the land. Quote, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, end quote. Now, how many people today would do that? It doesn't seem like many. In fact, it seems like many would do the opposite. I don't think you guys understand. Quote, we, the representatives of the United States of America, with a little u, this is directly out of the Declaration of Independence. This is actually the last paragraph, which shows the sincerity of the people's belief in the sacred principles contained therein. Quote, we, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, end quote. The preamble to the United States Constitution states, quote, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution, this Constitution, this Constitution, not the second Constitution that we're under now, that makes the United States a corporation. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and secure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, end quote. The sacred rights of mankind held within the Constitution are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written as with a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power, end quote. That was Alexander Hamilton. Any of you who are adept in deciphering the Freemasonic mystery religions may have caught that there, what he said. Many of you aren't quite that point. I suppose I really haven't even covered much of the mysteries, but we'll get there. This is kind of good so we can show people. I'll read that again for you. Listen for the key words. He gives himself away, for he worships Lucifer. He is a member of the mystery religion of Babylon. He was, because he's no longer alive, because he never became a god, because that surely is not happening. However, he was a Freemason. Let me read that again for you. Quote, "The sacred rights of mankind held within the Constitution are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written as a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power." End quote. The Bill of Rights. Quote, "That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men." Declaration of Independence. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights did not grant us our rights. Our rights have existed from birth, as they were endowed by our Creator. Even if someone is not an American, they have inborn rights. The Bill of Rights was established not to grant rights, but to prohibit the government from infringing upon those pre-existing rights. The First Amendment states that the Congress shall make no law infringing upon our rights. The preamble to the Bill of Rights, which the government has taken out of our history books, states, quote, "The conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending to the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution." End quote. The original foundation of our government and law was respect for rights by each other and by the government. The law sought among equal sovereigns. The law among equal sovereigns is that, quote, "one sovereign may not infringe upon the rights of other sovereigns." End quote. This principle has its roots in the biblical golden rule or royal law. Quote, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Even the most staunch atheist would have to agree that this must be the fundamental law of any civilized, intelligent, self-respecting, and peaceful society. Experts have stated that the reason that the form of government in America has remained unchanged for over 200 years is because of its original basis in the Christian Golden Rule principle. Quote, "Let no more be said about confidence in men, but bind them down from mischief with the chains of the Constitution." End quote. And folks, I know some of the music I might have played on this podcast might throw you off, but I assure you, it generally has a meaning. And a lot of times I'll play different things because I know if people get into the video that the music can catch their attention. Maybe the words and maybe the topics won't, but a lot of times we can bring people with music. And so that's very important. So if you could, try not to skip through the music and maybe just try and think about it a little bit. Seems we got a whole lot of people not doing much thinking anymore, and it's about time that they start doing some thinking because we're essentially running out of time, is what's happening. And it's not good. Good night.